The Diary of a Certified Psychopath. Off the crank. Forgive the computational compulsions of Strava's cardio-savvy mobility surveyors, but it is their active duty to warn any highly valued subscribers who may be planning to satiate their parched taste buds with a premature bank holiday bitter lemon at their local libation station, that such reckless acquiescence to life's intoxicating temptations not only contravenes the militant cleansing regime imposed by our omnipresent Messiah at a very sacred time of year, but it might also elicit a pronounced spike in the rate of perceived rigour required to wrestle their way through a postural pick-and-mix of reflectively sour stone-cold circuitry around the labyrinthine matrix of one-way streets, sweeping crescents, and shadowy cul-de-sacs that embody their hometown's quirky period quarter, where high-walled hedges guarding sleepy abodes might not yield so easily to those sneaky peddlers seeking practical shortcuts as, for example, those bushy hornbeam blockades at Hampton Court Palace. Yes, thanks for the caution, I telepathically responded to the digital ether. But during this enlightening movable feast, let me assure any presumptuous algorithms that many healthy mortals have long appreciated there are levels of humility far below those that can be precipitated by a mild hangover. For instance, when you have already been forced to trade toes with an e-doping commuter saddled on their flat-pack Brompton knockoff before completing the opening mile of a parentally assigned mission to forage 2 vials of botanically brewed eau de cologne from Shoreham's only licensed high street trader. Then, barely one moonrise after politely refusing a receipt, you're almost pipped to the imaginary finish line of Hammy Lane's third-to-last lamppost heading north by Dick Dastardly's spiritual grandson, who then celebrates their fairy tale victory by performing donuts across your GP surgery's deserted parking lot, in a pedal-propelled go-kart. Aside from these pride-fueled bouts of pulmonary extortion, this aerobically impulsive medley flowed freely between 65 and 75% of my lactic threshold, with an average that resided in Zone 3's meanest, greenest mids, and also included one unseated mash around Garden Close, which evoked a sense of breathlessness comparable to that of a French porter carrying 2 Louis Vuitton suitcases filled with tinned peaches. In a surreal closing kilometre, I ambled over Ferry Footbridge past the lethal wooden bollards stationed opposite the Waterside Tavern, where I exchanged telling glances with a solitary traffic cone that had evidently separated from its siblings on the mainland in a bid to avoid the fallout of this Holy Friday's hedonistic pub culture, whose voluntary victims might miscast it as a dunce's hat in their raucous games of truth or dare. Foxy fandom. Never have I heard a freehub purr with quite such palpable pleasure, observed a primeval voice from the occlusive shadows of Sawling's Reach, vaguely vulpine in timbre, and echoed by distant howls of a similar pitch. Slowing gently to a stop, I dismounted, and turned to address its source, whereupon I was greeted by a lithe silhouette, standing side-on with 2 angled ears pricked, and a full-bodied tail sloping more gracefully than any down-tube, just far enough to elude the ground. "Thank you," I responded in the local dialect. "I believe you paid my steed that compliment before, and not long after the last occasion he'd been serviced." As I peered closer, my furry spectator cantered forwards, and into rusty orange view beneath a nearby street lamp, parading his bountiful coat beneath its incandescent gaze, at which point I recognized a distinctive patch of pale brown just above his right paw, confirming that this was indeed my vintage trailblazer's previous admirer, and clearly possessed a keen ear for quality. "It's a Chris King something or other," I said, hopping back on Tyne Mighty's saddle. At a civil speed, these handcrafted units hover on the edge of silence, meaning only those blessed with hypersensitive hearing can tell when I'm approaching without visual aid. But for oblivious humans, I do this! I rapidly spun my cranks backwards, revving the hub's discreet purr to a resonant buzz, which spooked my feral onlooker, who abruptly scuttled for cover behind a parked wheelie bin. After soft-pedalling back up to the approximate speed of a race-walking centipede, I immediately crossed a section of loose cobblestones, which rumbled in percussive accord with my hub's contented rattle. Few other noteworthy events came to pass during this fantastically desultory dally for threadbare essentials, unless swiping the last tub of vanished stain removal powder from the Spartan shelves of Shoreham's most cooperative trader in tangible conveniences is the type of incendiary story that would nestle neatly within Apple's toxic grapevine of cherry-picked news headlines, and persuade premium subscribers to pay more than double the price of a freshly freeze-dried espresso for the privilege of reading beyond its provocative opening paragraph.